Hare Krishna World Racer, Sabina and Roger here. Let's watch Expanding the Brahmanda Universe, a video by the channel Radha Mohan does Vedic Science and History. It's the first time we react to one of his videos, and we know that Radha Mohan das is based in Watford at the beautiful Bhaktivedanta Manor. Well, I've been there with a good friend. He took me there. Roger has not been there, unfortunately, but it is so very beautiful. And yeah, I've been there a few times, and that's where I actually learned the Hare Krishna mantra during the pujas.
It was donated by George Harrison.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, wow.
From the Beatles, if you're not aware of him. But yeah, that's what I definitely remembered when I went there.
That's incredible.
Let's dive right into it after you hit the like and subscribe button.
This is for the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies, made in February 2022. What does the dictionary say on universe? All existing matter, space, time and energy all together. Universe is a hypothetical cosmos with particularly distinguishing properties, an alternative or subjective reality. In this presentation, translations and commentaries by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In his class in San Francisco 1968 on the Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, so how these Brahmandas, or universes, each of them has a predominant deity. He is called Brahma, Brahmanda, the master of this Brahmanda. It's a sphere with the bottom half full of the Garbhodaka ocean. In the top half, there's a horizontal disc across the middle called Bhumandala, with a similar scale to the solar system. And the vertical direction includes 14 planetary systems. At the centre of the whole thing is Mount Meru and planet Earth. The entire Brahmanda is surrounded by elemental layers, each one 10 times thicker than the previous, and is formed by the condensation of elements, starting as the most subtle and then getting grosser. Srimad Bhagavatam 5.21.11 purport. Each universe is covered by various layers of material elements, and therefore we cannot see from one universe to another. In other words, whatever we see is within this one universe. This is a morning walk between Giriraj and Srila Prabhupada. Giriraj, so at night when we look up, everything we see is within this universe? Prabhupada, yes, within this universe. And yes, there are innumerable universes. But note, he doesn't necessarily refer to looking up with the use of a modern telescope.
Yeah, I was just going to say
His
that.
introduction to Srimad Bhagavatam 5.20. The distance between the sun and the circumference of Andagolaka, the globe of the universe, is estimated to be 25 koti yojanas, 2 billion miles. That's a figure we have to look at more carefully, and it's usually problematic for us. For example, if we look at, say, for example, the distance between the Earth and Uranus is estimated to be about 1.98 billion miles. So 2 billion miles is simply something more on the scale of the solar system. And NASA calculates that as of February 2018, Voyager 1 is roughly 13.2 billion miles from the Earth.
What?
And Voyager 2, about 11 billion miles.
What?
So the universe is 4 billion physical miles in diameter? No way. Let's dig deeper.
What?
Let's look at the Siddhantic size of the universe, for example. Prabhupada's purport to the Chaitamrita, Major Leader 1284, reads, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, one of the greatest astrologers of his time, gives information from the Siddhanta Shriyamani that this universe measures 18.712, etc., quadrillion times 8 miles. This is the circumference of this universe. According to some, it's only half the circumference. Now, it's generally accepted that the Siddhantas use a yojana value of 5 miles. However, in this purport, Prabhupada definitely says 8. In the Siddhanta, multiply the number of revolutions of the moon in a kalpa by the moon's orbit. The sun's rays reach as far as this. That is the size of this Brahmanda universe. Now, one kalpa is 4.3 billion years. So in the Shrila Siddhanta 1290, what we read is this. We get the circumference of the universe, 18 quadrillion yojanas approximately. What does that mean if we kind of compare that with modern estimates? Well, about a tenth the size of our galaxy. Sariputta Prabhu calculates that its radius comes to about just over 5,000 light years, the diameter of 10,130 light years. If the circumference is doubled, it comes to a diameter of about 20,361 light years. But we've got to add the elemental layers. The coverings of the universe, says Prabhupada, are also constituted by the elements of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and each is 10 times thicker than the one before. The first covering of the universe is earth, and it is 10 times thicker than the universe itself. So if the universe is 4 billion miles in size, then the size of the earthly coverings of the universe is 4 billion times 10. So let's demonstrate that. So the beginning of the first covering would be just after the geocentric orbit of Uranus there. But then you've got to add the 7 layers. The first layer being 40 billion miles thick. So let's just do those various layers 7 times, 10 times thicker than the previous. All those 7 layers added together would reach 44 quadrillion, approximately, miles from the Earth. We get 15,120.6 light years in diameter. It's an interesting fact that this is in between the standard and doubled size of the Siddhantic universe. Note that the standard Siddhantic diameter of 10,130 light years is from 7 layers, but times that by 10 to get 8 layers. That gives you 101,300 light years, which is very similar to the modern estimate size of our Milky Way galaxy.
I'm completely lost, by the way.
It's Bhagavatam 2.4 is purple.
Big.
There are innumerable universes, and all of them together are known as the created material world. So we have many Brahmandas of different sizes, and similarly there are many galaxies of different sizes. So are Brahmandas the same as galaxies?
Yeah.
Well, that would support this theory, the Big Bang bounce theory, rather. The fact that the cosmos could be expanding and contracting on and on and on. This could be similar to to the breathing of Mahavishnu.
It's a
He
science?
breathes in and out innumerable Brahmandas.
No.
Let's look at devotees' theories on the scale of the Brahmanda's vertical axis now. Scriptural proportionality is explored by Dwija Govinda Prabhu and myself. It takes into consideration the proportionality coefficient between the Puranic and Siddhantic sides of the universe, which means between the Earth and Satyaloka at the top, it doesn't mean literally 2 billion physical miles, but try converting that to 10,108 light years, the radius of the doubled Siddhantic universe. In that case, the 7 sages, or the Big Dipper as we see, described in the 5th canto, would be about 103.9 light years away. Now Alkiad, or Brigu, the brightest star in that group, is similar, 104 light years away in modern calculations, very meaningful. And yet this formula does not at all apply to the Graha planets of the solar system. It means they're completely out in this situation. But theory 2, efforts and pathways of the great yogis. Now the value of a yojana was traditionally based on an oxen pulling a royal cart, and 1 yojana was equivalent to about 8 miles a day. And the oxen would have to go there and then come back again in that time. But the cosmic vertical direction is very different to the context to horizontal journeys on the Earth. This vertical direction of the Brahmanda may also be to do with levels of consciousness and experience of time, proportion of gross and subtle elements in the body, and the degree of sattva gun. But could a single vertical yojana represent the distance covered by the mental effort of a yogi?
Oh, that's cool.
In other words, the same relative effort a bull makes to pull a cart in one day. That's similar to the writings of Rishivaraj Prabhu and some of his books. In the Vedic Cosmology and Astronomy, Chapter 6, Sadaputta writes, the 2 billion mile distance is referring to this distance as it would be perceived by the demigods, yogis and rishis who can actually make this trip.
We have to stop because I'm now completely lost, and Roger's like, It's like, what?
Yeah, so I'm humming along. I'm not sure if I completely understand, but I'm trying to grasp it, with just my intellectual, capacity to possibly understand that he's talking about, consciousness. So he's mentioning levels of consciousness in the sense that, yogis or enlightened beings or, people who have made significant progress on the path, you got to think that, they can reach the outer boundaries of this universe with their mind, right? Like, for example, we know that, the Buddha attained, the omniscient mind of a Buddha, meaning in his enlightened state, his consciousness encompassed the whole field and he became one with that infinite field of consciousness. You could say, Brahman in this case. or Shiva, whatever words you want to use to describe the infinite field of consciousness. And then so some yogis, have that capacity. And then so the layers, it depends on your spiritual advancement and attainment, because we know that even just becoming enlightened isn't the end of the journey. There's different, levels to enlightenment where your mind becomes more and more all-encompassing and expansive as you merge with the absolute. So he's saying that, a lot of times in the past it was taking like literally, when he's talking about that unit of measurement, the yagnas, but now he's saying that it could have related more to spiritual attainment, right? So the distance that you can cross means on how spiritually advanced you are.
I love this video. Even I don't understand much, but it's just all these numbers and just, I get like, the expansiveness, the vastness of the space and the creation. It's just, I don't know, it always does something with my mind. It's always like there is a recognition and there's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just almost like dissolving into that potential.
The rate of passage of time is much slower on Satyaloka, Brahmaloka than it is on the earth. We suggested that this might also be a comparable transformation of space in the region of Satyaloka. While a yogi is travelling to Satyaloka may experience his crossing 2 billion miles, but from our point of view, he might be covering much further. Now we add the inevitable time dimension. Theory 3, inverse distance time proportional. That the size of this universe is differently perceived at the different lokas. It suggests that the perceived size is inversely proportional to the lifespans at different cosmic levels. For example, the inhabitants of Brahmaloka perceive the smallest universe of only 4 billion miles in diameter. This is supported by Srila Prabhupada, who in 1972 said, "With your relative body, your duration of life, your knowledge, your perception, everything is relative. So you are a teeny human being." In his purport to the Bhagavatam 3.11.4, time and space are correlative terms. Now, if time and space are perceived differently at different levels in the universe, can the same be true of our perception of distances from the Earth?
Yeah, totally.
Well, in other words, if 4 billion miles is the diameter of this universe as experienced by Lord Brahma, what could it be to us? Well, if Lord Brahma's experience of time on his planet is at a rate of more than 3.11 trillion times slower than that on the Earth.
Wow.
So 4 billion miles times 3.11 trillion in this theory approximately gives us the diameter of the Brahmanda from our point of view. From that we reach a figure of about 2.17 billion light years.
I love the
That's
picture.
quite a respectable figure in modern terms, actually. For example, in modern astronomy, that would be about 5 times the size of the Laniakea supercluster, of which our galaxy is just a tiny part.
The galaxy.
Theory 4. The universe may be surrounded by a huge hall of mirrors and not be as large as it seems.
It's a theory. Yeah.
Beyond a point, we may be seeing reflections of our own group of galaxies. Space might act like a cosmic hall of mirrors, revealing multiple images of the same light sources. Now, the astronomer Jean-Paul Luminet at the Paris Observatory called this theory crumpled space. We see a sky filled with galaxies, but its aspect does not make it possible to decide if the farthest galaxies are not ghost images of closer galaxies. The assumption of a multi-connected universe cannot be discarded. The universe could appear vast to us unfolded, when it could actually be much smaller and folded up in reality. Just to picture this large piece of paper here represents a space-time universe. If it's all crumpled up, then it's all crunched up and it's therefore much smaller, technically speaking. Theory 5. How to expand very large. We could try regarding the standard scale of the Siddhantic universe as the Brahmanda. Therefore we can add its 7 layers. We add all those layers up and we do get very large indeed, in fact. At 7 layers, it reaches a radius of 5.05 billion light years. That means actually we're looking back in time there of 5.05 billion years. That takes us during the first half of Lord Brahma's previous night. With its 8 layers though, it would come to about 101 billion light years. Note the modern estimates of the diameter of the entire egg-shaped cosmos is at 93 billion light
That's
years.
pretty close.
It's quite similar.
Egg-shaped.
And if we look back there, we're looking back nearly 6 days ago from the point of view of Lord Brahma.
Oh, wow.
6 days of creation.
Genesis.
Now that certainly rings a bell. Concluding thoughts. Now in Dhanavir Goswami's commentaries on the 5th canto, we read, in Viraragava's commentary on the Bhagavatam 5.20.38, the learned say that the earth is 500 million yojanas, 4 billion miles. Earth is to be taken here as a Brahmanda. This is evidence that different uses and scales are sometimes used. Now in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada translates Brahmandala Mandala as all of the universes. Also, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Madhya-lila, he writes, when we speak of Brahmanda, we refer to the whole universe, or to the cluster of many millions of universes. This reminds me of the theory of fractal cosmology theory. What this means is that the structure of the universe is a fractal across a wide range of scales, as above, so below, and the macrocosm and microcosm may be based on the ability and intention of the observer.
Yeah.
There's a similar phenomenon with different scales of Vishnu forms, like Mahavishnu, for example, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, who is much smaller and innumerable, and Shiradakshay Vishnu, even smaller, and in the heart of every living being. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and please share this with others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Radha Mohan. Oh.
Yeah, that was mind-blowing.
Wow. I absolutely loved it. I mean, not that I would have understood much, but it doesn't matter. There's always something in it, in the presentation, which was done fantastically. Like, wow, the effort, like the details, like...
Yeah, and the research.
The research,
going
exactly.
into the old quotes, from those masters, and then the knowledgeable sages of the Puranas and those sacred texts. So what I love the most about it is that, for me, I've been kind of led through my spiritual journey to really, count on the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Puranas, the Bhagavad Gita, to be truth itself, right? So when I'm hearing, how, like so many years ago in the ancient scriptures and texts, they're talking about such astronomical figures, and then they look at modern science, and then just how close they are. So how did these ancient sages have this wisdom and this knowledge, back then? Obviously, we're talking about enlightened beings with supreme divine intelligence, knowing things that would be, impossible for just regular egoic beings, to know. And then it made its way into the scriptures, thus also validating the truth of such scriptures. So that's my big take on it, because, in my, limited mind, being a spiritual seekers, I'm not too much interested in just, the intellectual, modern day, what we call as, knowledge. It's just facts and figures and numbers, and the universe is so big, and then trying to prove it, and then what it actually is, like the different theories, the crumpled universe or the multiverses and all of that. Yeah, it's interesting.
I love it.
It's interesting and fascinating, but to me, it's more about, transcending all, intellectual information. So the real purpose of it, for my mind, is to prove the truth of those, scriptures, because then you can dive into them further with an even more open mind, and then thus expanding your mind to, eventually go beyond the ego itself. So that being said, the one thing I wanted to talk about earlier was, so when it seems like Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada said, said it's not necessarily with the telescope that you can, see beyond, this universe. So he's saying that when you look up into the sky, everything that you see is within our universe, right? Which means that everything, like all the stars that we can see in the sky, are within our galaxy. And this came to my thought like years ago when I was still, I think, a teenager, and I was diving into like Hubble telescope images and then distant galaxies. And I was like, and you look at the image of a galaxy like a swirling mass of stars. Like we've all seen that. And in my mind, I was like, that's a universe. Who's to say that? Because it's the distance in between galaxies is so astronomical. I was like, well, maybe what we think of galaxies are actually universes. And then now with a telescope, when we can see into distant galaxies, we're actually looking into other universes, right? So I'm not saying that's true, and I don't really know, because I think that everything that we can see. But now when we're talking about multiverses, and now there's the new telescope, that we'll have to watch a video about that, because there's theories now that with that telescope you can see beyond this universe. But it's crazy.
Okay,
yeah.
maybe this is all a bit off topic, or maybe but who is to say that what makes another universe and not just part of this universe? What does a universe define, and what does the end of one universe define in the beginning of another?
Yeah.
Is there a...
So in my mind, so I don't believe my theory of one galaxy is a universe. That's just what happened in my mind years ago. So now my definition of a universe is, anything that we can, perceive, even with telescopes, because it seems like the Puranas are saying that there's very defined boundaries, there's layers.
Yeah, what does that mean? Can you somehow...
Well, it sounds like, so the material universe that we can see, like everything of matter, all the planets and galaxies and stars and solar systems, and basically everything that's a manifestation of consciousness into form that we can observe, even with telescopes. That be like the first layer. That's like the material created universe. And then after that, like 10 times more than that is the next layer, and it goes from the most dense to the most subtle. So I believe it's like Earth is the beginning, and then the next sheath, and then the next sheath.
Yeah, but what are those sheaths?
Well, we don't know. I don't know much more than that. It's just different layers, like
dimensions, like different...
Well, I'd say it like boundaries, right? And in the process of enlightenment and being freed from samsara is to getting through those boundaries. So I almost see it kind of like, the veil of Maya. So you can look at the ego as your universe, and here it is now, and everything of form is manifesting within my mind, right? But then as you begin to transcend your egoic mind, then you begin to cut through the veil of the layers, right? And then once you reach, get to the highest layer, then you're transcending into the spiritual realms and in the other, lokas, like, the divine heavenly abodes, beyond this creation where, Krishna is saying that. So all of the materially created universes are only a quarter of his potentiality, his power, and then 3/4 are the universes beyond the physical manifested universes. So we're talking about it, and it's so astronomical.
Wow.
It's like people need to get more mind-boggled, which is why I like these videos that show how mind-boggling creation is, because there's still so many depictions and arguments and debates, and people aren't realizing that they're limiting God. Every time somebody says that this way is the only way, or that way is the only way, or, you have to believe in this, or you have to believe in that, it's ridiculous. It's like, look at the power of, creation itself and the size of the universe. It's like we're dealing with a cosmic intelligence that is so beyond what we even think intelligence is, right? It's like we need to let go of everything. Everything.
This was another treat to watch. I really loved it, and I wonder if what's his name? Radha Mohan is a scientist or has a scientific background, because otherwise how can you put all these theories together and understand them?
Oh yeah, totally.
Because it also seemed to have been like a
mind,
like a presentation, and there is like a Bhaktivedanta Institute for higher studies.
Oh yeah.
Let us know all about it. We have not come across it, have we?
No,
I don't think
no.
so. Yeah.
But yeah, so of course, on our journey, we're going to be diving more and more into the Vedic sciences, the Vedas, the Upanishads. You know, we are spiritual seekers. We're taking advantage of this most precious human lifetime, seeking the ultimate truth of reality. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for this wonderful video. We're going to dive into more of his videos because there's
Absolutely. That was
a lot
great.
of topics that I need answers to. So so thank you so much. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Remember to head on over and watch some of his amazing videos.
Yeah.
You know, if you're interested, if you like this one, go check out more, because seems like he's done the research and he's got the info. So thank you all so much, and remember, raise yourself
And raise the world. Thank you so much, everyone. We love you.
Peace.